So last week I was a tad harsh on Goliath. Ultimately, he is a good card and a very good card for specifically what he is, which is a low cost, good power type of card that slides perfectly into ongoing decks. He synergizes with Ravonna as well to reduce his cost even further to 1. When paired with Moonstone or copied with Mystique, he has value. There's a ton of synergies with an ongoing that greatly benefit Goliath. Now, the issue, of course, with ongoing decks is the myriad of tech cards that you have against it. My next video is all about Enchantress and how she can just wreck ongoing metas. Despite what I heard from some people, how she can be ineffective, she was not ineffective for me. So there is that serious liability with ongoing decks. But Goliath does fill a need in being a low-powered or low-cost card that slides into there that's better than Howard or something like that, Howard the Duck. So ultimately, he's a good card, a really good card. If you play ongoing decks, you really should pick him up. And now to this week's Spotlight. Kahhori is the new card this week. She is an original character from the Marvel What If series. If you haven't watched it, don't start now.
Trash.
Then she is joined by Cull Obsidian, which is just a dumb big power card at 4 cost. And then Hydra Bob, who's a pretty good card at the 1 cost slot, with this interesting mechanic around snapping to get him to move. Both players can do it once each game, unless there's a limited time mode that changes some of the rules. And let's get started with Kahhori. Kahhori kind of reminds me of Gwenpool in that they take a set power and apply it to cards randomly. And that's ultimately what happens. Each card gives a random card +1, so sometimes they can be doubled up and a card can go missing with a buff. It's not this equal dispersion of power. She is a 4 cost, so natural synergies include Zabu and Psylocke, but also her restriction, it's not really a restriction, but she's more powerful with the more cards you have in your hand. So that presents, do you want to brick your draw? Because on turn 5, you could play a Snow Guard and a Kahhori together. That way you could have 7 cards in your hand and get +7 on the board. So in total, she's at roughly a 4-13. Or do you go down to 6 or 5? So there's some kind of thought process with that. And otherwise, let's get to the decks. With Series 2, there really isn't much synergy. So I have on a turn 5, potentially Agent 13 and then Kahhori to put cards back in your hand. Otherwise, I'm going with the Heimdall slide juke, so that's why Kraven is here. Cable gives you cards in your hand as well. And you may play a Blue Marvel on 5, a Kahhori on 4, Blue Marvel on 5, and then spam out your 1 cost cards if you've been holding them for Kahhori's buff. Enchantress is here because of the current ongoing meta that we are in, but feel free to slot her out for any other tech card. And the Series 3 version is leaning more into shield. So Devil Dinosaur is here because your hand is mostly going to be full at all times. Especially on the last turn, you could fill your hand back up to 7 with cards like Snow Guard or Nick Fury or Agent Coulson. Mystique's here to copy Devil Dino. That's a classic pairing. Collector because you're constantly filling your hand. And then we have Quinjet as well, just in case that game plan isn't working. We can just play some of these generated cards for cheaper. If you are at a higher series level, throwing in somebody like a Victoria Hand may work as well with that alternative game plan. With the Series 4 and 5 version, this is really important that you get down a 4 cost card on turn 3. That's really what you want to do. So a Wong, Gwenpool, Kahhori, or Anti-Venom. Ideally Wong. Second is Anti-Venom, and then maybe a Gwenpool, and then Kahhori last on turn 3, that is. So you get down a Wong, and then you get down either a Gwenpool or Kahhori to really buff your board. Adam Warlock is here to ease some of this drawing tension that you ideally want to be drawing through most of your deck, as does every deck. But this deck in specific, We have Sage and Iron Man as well, because they're just good cards, especially when combined with Anti-Venom. All of these cards at the higher end are fantastic with Anti-Venom. The 3 costs and above, even if it's removing some of that power, you're still getting that ability that that card has. Sunspot, in case you need to skip turns, you're still using that, putting that energy to use. Adam Warlock, we covered. And Enchantress is just the tech card of choice. But again, feel free to sub in something for her, depending on the current meta. So Cull Obsidian has his places. There are decks like my Firehair deck, but also things like Thanos and some Wiccan decks as well, because you're running Quicksilver, so that's a natural pairing with Cull. You're always going to have a 1-cost card, unless it gets Killmongered, of course. So overall, Cull does have his uses, and if you end up getting him, the other deck is Scar Surtur as well. So there are uses in a bunch of different decks for Cull. Now, Hydra Bob is a pretty interesting card because it really rides its back on the snapped mechanic. And if either player snaps, it moves to a random location. Otherwise, at a 1/4, that's just good value as well. They did buff him up to a 1/5 because people thought he stunk at a 1/4. People realized how good he was. They moved him back down to a 1/4. So overall, this is still a very useful card in certain decks. And at 1 cost, you can play it in something like Zoo, which can prevent it from moving. And otherwise, you can just try snapping it into a closed off location as well. So there are also a bunch of different uses for Hydra Bob. So will Nerd Dynamite be unlocking Kahhori, Reshaper of Worlds? Nope, not a chance. This card, I fail to see how it is going to have any lasting impact, because once you start introducing randomness into cards, it's just that, it's random. So on one extreme you have Cersei, which is super random and really doesn't get played that much. But then even things like Gwenpool, you can kind of control that, but Kahhori seems even more random to me, because now I need to involve my hand size, but also manage what's on the board. But if I manage what's on the board, that means I'm not playing too many cards, which in a card game, you want to be playing cards. So I think this is just ultimately going to be too random of an effect to have any kind of staying power as a card, unless they figure out a way to buff it, which is entirely possible. You lower the cost, you +2 sounds like it'd be too much. Or maybe raise her base power from 6 to 7 or 8, I don't know. But it just seems like it's not going to be around for long. So to recap, Kahhori gets my rejected seal. Their Dynamite isn't using good or bad anymore because people yelled at him in the comments? No, not quite. I just felt like it would be more accurate, because saying good or bad, like ultimately, all of these cards are decent. Don't talk about Bruce Banner, but most cards are decent cards. So it kind of felt weird calling them bad when they're decent, except if we're talking about Captain Carter.
She is and it starts with a B.
Trash.
Sorry for taking that stray. But anyway, so Kahhori gets my rejected seal. I don't think she's going to be around for very long, at least in her current state. Cull Obsidian gets my approved seal. Again, he has plenty of uses and just big dumb power that you can fit into a number of different decks, and I have before. And then Hydra Bob gets my seal of approval as well. A pretty good 1-cost card. I personally do not have him. I would like to get him, but I am staying away from Kahhori, and I really don't want her. I already have Cull, and so sadly I still will not have Hydra Bob. I will have to wait for the new snap packs, potentially. And that is the week. So thank you to all the members of the channel, and thank you to everybody that watches to the very last second. And this week I will let Thanos in the video.
I hate your shirt.